So welcome all. I'm doing this ahead of time for December. It's October. No, it's not October. It's November 28th today. And I know the dates for the month, or I know the energy for December, even though I haven't put out any videos on December yet. I will, hopefully. And so I think I can do this ahead of time. So on December 3rd, we're actually looking at a square approaching between Mars and Saturn. And so we will have, give me a second, I'll go to that date. So we're going to have where we'll be at on December 3rd is Mars will be in Sagittarius 21 degrees and Saturn will be 25 degrees. So we'll be within 2 degrees of a square between Mars and Saturn. And also we will be a couple hours from a full moon. Wow. This is an intense day. So this is a full moon in Gemini conjuncting not quite conjuncting Uranus, yeah, because Uranus will be in 28 Taurus, and with a square approaching. And so on this day, the active gateway for the sun will be through gate 5. And gate 5 is the sun in Sagittarius, whereas the opposite, the earth, will be in 35, which is a Gemini gate, and the moon will be in a Gemini gate as well, gate 8. And actually the moon will probably switch to the next gate, and that will be probably be a move into gate 20, if I'm correct. So this is the active chart for December 3rd. It's a manifestor, emotional manifestor chart. You could see that we have activations in the 35, and that will be Earth, as I said, and then in the 36th, the Pisces gate, which will be Saturn. And so Saturn and the Earth sign will be creating this opposition, and then we'll have the square with Saturn and Mars. This will be an intense full moon, but I'm not sensing that December will be as chaotic as November. There was something about, the dark underworld nature of that recent Scorpio new moon, where what was communicated between the bridges between people, and I talked about this a couple of videos back, and in the video that was for the whole month of November, I talked about how November was going to be about conversations, deep, in-depth, heart-to-heart, intimate conversations between oneself and others. Even if it doesn't seem that way. That's what I noticed. Even conversations that seem to be general and just communicating actually turned out to be revealing a lot of great depth. And it's a very powerful month. I had very powerful, deep conversations that were building trust, and we're utilizing the bridge that we humans create between each other. There was also a lot of difficult truths being expressed, and so there was also a lot of collapses of bridges between people, and some of those bridges are not going to be rebuilt. And I saw this in my observations with some stuff friends were going through, and I also saw it in my life with the way I communicated certain things in a way which exposed the shadow nature without being fully clear, or being able to express also the light within the darkness, the light inside that illuminates it. Because every time we approach the underworld, we're looking for light. And the light we're looking for is essentially our own light. Because in the underworld, there's no light. There's no electricity. There's no light bulbs, and there's no suns, except perhaps a black sun. And so the only light is our own soul, is our own awareness. That's the only light, and so perception is the key to awareness in the underworld. One brings the light that one has. And that is what November was. It was a visit into the underworld. In December, with Sagittarius and the metaphor of the bow and the arrow, after the reserve and withdrawal of Scorpio, we are pushing out into the world, onto the surface again. And with it moving into Capricorn, we're moving into dense, solid earth. And so December is more of a becoming ready to whatever we nurtured, whatever we created during this time in our cocooning of November, we're releasing it now in December. And so what we're experiencing here with this December 3rd full moon is a release of anything that was not correct, anything that needs to be released that we're done with for the period of November. Of course, there'll be a greater release during April, during the full moon in full moon in Scorpio, and that'll be the full pattern, the full 6-month pattern, and the full release of whatever built tension in the month of November. But December is going to see more. I mean, there's a lot of signals already coming clear economically. The Fed is going to do something that might finally release the Kraken from the underworld, or crypto from the underworld that it's been in, that it seems to have been kept in, or you know the game, the Ponzi scheme. I mean, just bringing it down further and further and further, just to make people lose trust, and so they jump out, and then so the deletes can cash in more and more. But essentially, as I noted, in November being about inner truth, December is going to be more about externalized truth, and seeing the evidence of that in the surface and in the geopolitical structures. And with this particular channel being activated, the channel of transitoriness, the 35-36. 35 is a Gemini gate, tends to get bored, tends to look for something new. And the 36 is the emotional mutation, and it's very transformative. And so there's a certain tension in this channel. It's a manifestor channel, and it wants to manifest into the world. So you see these 35 and the 36, and the energy just wants to manifest outward. And usually this energy is very powerful. It's very much energy that needs to move through things, and that's what it is. And the gateway for the sun is in gate 5, and that's over here, and you can see it's not activating a full channel. And the gate 515 is the channel of flow, So if you have the 15, you'll be feeling the flow with nature, as that's a very nature-oriented channel. It's a channel that most of the human species has. It's a mammalian or reptilian kind of channel that flows with all life. So all life pulsates with this particular frequency gate to the 5 and the 15. And the 5 rules time, and it rules being able to be on time or not be on time. And what we have with this particular gate is we have the gate of waiting. And this is a waiting to die. This is the essence of life, is we're here to wait in the correct flow of time. And if we can't do that, then we're impatient. Then we're obstructing the flow of time. And time, there's no such thing as time. It's just succession. Time is just the way we perceive the flow of life from our pineal gland, from our neocortex. It's how our perception is constructed, so that we perceive accordingly to the rhythm of our perception, the rhythm of our heart, of our body. If we're accepting and trusting in the flow of life, then we're patient. If we're not trusting in the flow of life, then our breathing gets in the way, and the patterns of our breathing become distorted and imbalanced. And then we're not trying. Then we become pushy or intense or agitated or just unable to be comfortable and allowing and accepting of one's own flow. And so you see this in people that are stuck in this kind of frequency oscillation between one and another, this tension between one side and another, between extremes, until the tension finally has to blow up, and so the person either blows up or blows out or blows within. And this is the solution for this emotional kind of conflict with the 5, is to understand that when you're being impatient, you're not trusting the flow of life. You're trying to get past the moment. You're trying to avoid whatever is in that moment. We're not allowing that moment to just be. Because if we allow each moment to be, then there's no impatience. There's no worry about getting this place to that place. And it's very simple. I mean, you can observe it in a dysregulated nervous system whose breathing patterns are off. That's someone who's going to be stuck. Because when you regulate your nervous system, your breathing patterns, and you're in a secure posture of life, and you're accepting and allowing of life, then you'll be patient. And that's the power of this particular gate, is to allow that space to be patient. The way Ra talks about his particular gate is, as I said, it's called waiting, the fundamental attunement to natural rhythms. Waiting is an active state of awareness. And so this is the channel flow, and what Ra called this channel's kind of theme is, rhythm is the miracle of what it is to be alive. So whenever I deal with people that have the 5, I tell them the same thing. Pay attention to your life and see what your natural rhythm is, and then fix it. If you discover that every day at 4 o'clock you'd like to have a siesta, and you need that hour of rest because it's important to you, when you recognize that it is an important rhythm in your life, fix it and make it a habit. Make it a ritual. Concentration needs the proper patterns to work through. The moment you realize that this is your ritual and natural rhythm for you, you are using your energy properly. That's one thing about 5s is, and I do often tell clients with the 5-15, is to make time for the daily ritual, because it'll help you recognize your natural rhythms. And that attempt is in itself an active state of awareness. Because the moment that you're following your fixed natural rhythm, anything is possible because your energy is right. And that's how Ra talked about the logical process of this particular gate. Shaitan noted that the gardener finds ease in any circumstance by attuning to the natural seasons of change, the potential difficulty working within others' time frames. And so, as I noted, and as Shaitan notes, the lower frequencies manifest in pessimism and pushiness, the higher frequency in patience, and in the highest, which wouldn't be a frequency at all, is timelessness. And I have a really beautiful quote from Rad later on this timelessness space that this particular gateway can manifest in the body, in the field. And so going deeper into my notes for the 5, and the frequency that the sun will be at on this day while we have the 3536 going on. So let me note again. So with the 3536, people are going to feel amped up, like they have a lot of energy to expend, to utilize. And it will be sensitive energy with that 36, that Pisces 36. So there'll be a lot of emotional transformation on this full moon. The sun will be peeking through the 5, so it'll be asking you to have patience with life, with the movement of life. Things may appear not to be moving fast enough, or things may seem to appear being too fast. Regardless of how it appears, know that the most powerful state to hold is an awareness and an allowance of the pace that time is in flow with. The thing about life is, depending on where we are, time has different nuances to it. And it depends on our emotional state of being as well. Because all these things affect how we perceive. And so, starting with my primary notes in the shadow frequency of the 5, I'd have this listed as the energy of time. And so the lowest frequency being impatience. And as I noted before, this is a gate that unites all of us into one universal rhythm, which is the pulse of what life is. And it unites us as separate beings into one being, into one song of being. And so if you find yourself feeling impatient with life, what you're doing is you're displaying an actual distrust of life itself. And on a deeper level, this is actually a fear of death, as most fears are ultimately underneath and at the core. And there's many levels of fear of death, and there's many levels of fear of life ultimately, this is what it is. There's our outer fears, our inner fears, our collective fears. And ultimately, the fear of death is the fear of change. And there's no need to have fear in life. Fear operates at a level of distrust. But once there's an understanding, an allowance that everything that occurs is correct and in flow, and that we're trusting our body's authority, we tend not to trust reality because our minds get in the way. They like to play with the past, they like to play with the future, and thus getting us caught up in fear and anxiety of the future and fear of the past. But really, all there is what's in front of you. And that is what to trust in life, is what's in front of you, what's next. And so the key here lies in whether you choose to trust or not. The rhythm of life. And there's many rhythms that surround us. There's the rhythm of the seasons, the rhythm of the day, of light and darkness, the rhythm of our patterns, the rhythm of how we grow. And, a lot of us get caught up in thinking that, we need to do something to grow, to evolve, to get to a higher level. But it's not that we have to do anything. All we have to do is bring awareness to things. One level of it is just to bring clear awareness. And there's another level too. Hopefully I'll arrive at that. But the first level of dealing with these difficult emotional processes in the body isn't just bringing awareness to the pattern. And that awareness itself begins to dissolve the pattern. Because all our actions based from fear express these kind of shadow responses here in the 5, being impatience. Well, once we accept something, we can have patience. And the other side of this, the cure for impatience, is really to have determination. In other words, to achieve the goal. Impatience being an expression of, again, the breath and the nervous system overactivated, and the breath shallow or imbalanced. And so the importance here is accepting the flow of life so that we don't get caught up in restlessness and the impatience of it. And so we begin to approach and broach a center of beingness that is not over concerned with time, the past, or the present. And for those that get caught up in time, for those that worry, for those that don't trust in life, that are still stuck in this pattern of fear, just know that you will break through or break out or break down from this from this kind of obstructed rhythm or dissonance at some point. And that a turning point will then finally arrive. There are other things that can happen in life that represent and can help push and move us into this higher frequencies of awareness and utilization of this particular gateway. And as the sun illuminates it, we ourselves will have an opportunity to reflect on how we feel. When there's love for life, there's an extraordinary capacity and awareness to be present in the moment. Now that wavers with all of us. We're not all necessarily able to sustain that. Maybe some can. Because there's so many things occurring at each given moment. And really what only occurs is what we're aware of. There's 1,000 of other things that occur, but we're not aware of it unless we're aware of it. So the passage and flow of life, the impression it makes on us, is relative to our ability to love that moment. And love is itself a frequency, a certain magnetism that does cause the flow of temporality to change and shift. Here's the quote I was talking about one of the quotes I was talking about by Red. The more you are able to settle into a deep trust and patience with the rhythm of your own life, the more your heart will open, and the softer and the more yielding you will become in your attitude to everything and everyone that comes in your way. Rudd goes on to talk about life as a construction of patterns, and he talks about it being woven into the tapestry that is our life, that is ultimately our cosmic pattern. Another quote that Rudd made was, "Patience is the true gauge and measure of the greatness of a person's soul." This is a very powerful quote. Again, patience is the true gauge and measure of the greatness of a person's soul. This makes sense because beingness is everything, the state of your being. And all emotions, all the colors of emotional spectrum of reality are correct when they're correct, when they're in flow with time and space and beingness. And so then the only negation of life is to attempt to push it faster than it need be. And I run into this a lot as I have some Taurus in my chart, and I tend to move very slow. And people seem to endlessly have issue or take issue with this. But it's not necessarily that they're out of pattern with life. They may have their own pace. And so the irony here, of course, is that our own pace, our own flow may not necessarily be in flow with others. And so it's that allowance to allow one to be in their own flow and allow others to be in their own flow. We don't have to match the flow of another. Sometimes that'll happen, but a lot of the conflict between humans seems to come from this perceived need to match. Hence comes the dissonance between different types. Manifesting generators expecting projectors to match their intensity, or generators expecting manifestors to match their endurance. The allowance for different flows is really important, and a marker of one's ability to be in flow with what life is. And so, as we move further into this kind of understanding of the acceptance and allowance of life manifests in a sort of patience, there's a deeper level here that is hinted at or expressed, and that has to do with the flow of time dissipating or dissolving once one actually comes to a full trusting of it, and this time being something outside of identity. I'm going to see now if I can find that quote. There was another great quote. What Rudd noted for the highest level that he expressed as a acidic state is, in a acidic state you have jumped out of time. You are not identified You cannot talk in terms of patience or impatience because you cannot talk in terms of time or identity. And this is the meaning of timelessness, as the nature of consciousness itself. It is unborn and undying. Timelessness doesn't care whether the body is exhibiting patience or impatience. It simply is. It's the state of death of all fighting. Patience and impatience are not absolute states. They are poles within life, experienced through human awareness. Only timelessness is an absolute state. One thing all the gateways have in common, as expressed through our genetic continuity, and its shift and changes as we grow in awareness, is that there's always a sense of timelessness. Because this has to do with the transcendence of the ego, identity, and ego constraints of just being a body, or just being that definition of a body that one adheres to. And so there's something deeper. There's this capacity that we have as humans to tap into this subtle marker, this very, very subtle measure of time behind our consciousness. Like a drummer playing the beat of our pace of reality in the background of who we are, of our true beingness, not matching any other drummer, but only our own. And so in summary, Gate 5 is about trusting in life, trusting in every moment. And that's ultimately what health is, to be in flow with life. And not another person's life, not even your own life, but the life of consciousness itself. And try doing that this week on December 3rd, because this will be active December 3rd to, let me see if I can see the date that I put. December 3rd to December 8th. I'll try to start noting this at the beginning of the video too. See if you can do that during this time. This is going to be a rough ride to do it. We do have this very active channel, emotional channel, the 3536, which is quite intense, occurring during this time. And then after that, we'll be building up to a new moon in Capricorn, is it? It's going to be around the 20th. I'm going to have to double check that. And that has it like a T-square. That's going to be a very intense new moon as well. But this month will not be as intense as November. It'll be more of a time of settling and organizing. And even though the first couple weeks of December will be pretty active, it's a great time to actually put full force into a project, into completing something you really needed to get done. With all that Sag energy of this full moon, this first couple weeks of Sag is a time to really push through, or flow rather, not push, but flow through. And I'll see you guys in the next couple videos. I'm going to do the Pluto video, the Hades moon for the month, and then I'll do a summary for the month. And then next week I'm going to do a collaboration with Gary and Isabella, Tarot by Isabella, and Alternative Interactions Gary. We're going to do a video where I pick out some of the dates for the first 3 months or first 6 months of next year. And we're going to have, I don't know, Gary might comment on it too, that'd be great. And Isabella's going to pull cards or do the crystal ball, I don't know which, to see what she gets on those particular dates that I pick out. And it'll be interesting because we are moving towards the Aries vortex and its perfection on February 20th, as well as the eclipse a couple days before, some interesting dates in January as well as April, where there's an accumulation of planets in a certain sign. And of course, Jupiter going into Leo in the summer. And I've yet to look at the last 6 months of the dates, but those are some of the, that's my hint towards the dates for the month. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.